And before we get right on into it, we want to let you know that you are listening to Red, White, and Brown by Live on Radio's The Panchayat, if you guys don't know, is actually a series. It's a full show, and we were able to watch the actual entire season of it. And the first season of Panchayat, which has 8 episodes, focuses on this fresh out of college Abhishek Tripathi, who's played by Jitendra Kumar. And he's got this government job that takes him to this small village in Uttar Pradesh called Fulera as a Panchayat Sachiv. The city boy, he's struggling to settle into this tiny little village, and he's having like this drastic change of pace. I'm going to focus on passing my CAT exam so that he could finally leave Fulera, go back to his life. And by the 8th episode, he ends up really settling in and actually kind of liking Fulera. So I'm going to let you guys give your overview on what you think about it, one thing you liked, one thing you didn't, and anything else you want to add.
Well, this, of course, as Shreya said, is a story of the head of the village, the head of the panchayat, who is a woman, but the woman's powers are taken by her husband, who really runs the village, like everywhere else. We saw that happen in Jayeshwar Jordar as well. The woman is voted in, but she has to sign the document to give the power to the man to run the village. So like that over here as well, which is a dire reality in India, especially in villages. Women have a certain reservation in politics, because of which they get into the political game, and that's why they kind of are voted into power. But then the husbands take over that power, and they actually run it. So same thing happens here. And this guy, the engineering graduate, goes to live in the village as a secretary to the village head, the panchayat's head. And it's just the story of the little pursuits and the dilemmas of the village. And it's mildly spiced by the satire and the deadpan humor. And of course, the winning performances, just like in season 1, in season 2 as well. Like the first season, this season 2 steers clear of deep diving into the bigger issues of rural India, like caste and economic disparity and corruption and political bullying, and keeps its focus on the dynamics amongst its primary characters. So there is this entire episode when a CCTV installation in the middle of the village square leads to unforeseen requests, such as finding out who stole somebody's sandal from the temple, or where somebody's goat is gone. So literally this guy, this engineer guy, is literally sitting in an office in a village in the middle of nowhere doing this. And basically the guy's still looking for ways to flee the village by appearing in an exam. But that was season 1. And this season, he's more invested and he gets more used to the ways of the village. The character of Manju Devi, who's Neena Gupta as the village sarpanch, or the village head, is actually very well fleshed out in this season. But she still isn't as empowered when the season begins. Her husband, who was Brij Bhushan, Raghubir Yadav, is calling the shots as a proxy head of the village. But then there is an entire episode where Manju Devi and her gang of women manage to stand up against a corrupt politician, and that is an empowering event for her. But her problems are mostly domestic. Her issues are domestic. She has a petty rivalry with a couple, and she just wants to get her daughter married off to a suitable boy with a job in a big city. But then there is a romance brewing between this guy, the engineer guy, played by Jitendra Kumar, and her daughter. But none of them have the guts to talk about it. So it's sweet. It's about relationships. It's about different motivations. It's about different levels of education. It's about different backgrounds. The transition of an educated engineer from a man who was uncomfortable with where he was fighting to flee, to a man who's kind of now okay with where he is, though he doesn't like it, but he's kind of made peace with the place, is very well depicted. And of course, there's a friend of his who keeps calling him and asking him to appear for his management exams. and he actually visits him for a rural experience. And then this entire, the, the chemistry between the two and the conflicts, very well depicted. Um, Amazingly well written by Chandan Kumar, and director Deepak Kumar Mishra has subtly handled the lives of the inhabitants of Fulera in a very beautiful way.
And of course, speaking of suitable boy ready for marriage, Michael, your take.
Yeah, it's always great getting to see, Abhishek and this really come to a new realization, really start to grow in the village, especially when you see, within the first season and everything, where, he's just kind of, at war with himself, deciding whether or not he wants to stay, deciding whether or not he wants to go. And also, too, having a friend who is off somewhere else, living a life, after college. And, it's just really nice to see, here where we get to, kind of see him go through just like the little small details about living in the village, his romance as well. I thought it was great, like I just said, getting to see him really grow in the village and see a relationship start to form between him and the village.
Absolutely, I thought the other actors were amazing as well. I think the series really, I loved the series, not only because of the way the story is told, but also the actors really carry it. It's very gently told. It has a very satirical lens, and basically it's not afraid to show the cowardice of the people. Even the main protagonist is such a coward, but it stays leisurely and it stays on course with the satire of the situation, of how the office is also his home, and how he's irritated with situations, and how there is such a big gap between where he wants to go in life and where he is, and yet he becomes invested in a village that he wants to flee. So extremely well written. The actors are phenomenal. Chandan Roy, Faisal Malik, Sunita Rajwa, Durgesh Kumar, Shrikant Verma, Raghuveer Yadav, Neena Gupta, Jitendra Kumar. Phenomenally well written series. And so if you have time this weekend, we highly recommend the series.